know I probably shouldn't say this, but if I'm being honest with you, I'm a little bit shocked that I'm up here today. I'm a little bit shocked that Kinley is here with us today as well. Because I don't know if everybody knows, but 3 weeks ago on July 15th, our daughter was involved in a really bad accident and involving fire and it consuming her whole body. It was like a flash fire and then it went back. And I actually have a picture from the day that we left the hospital that I want to show you so you guys can just see. This was probably about 2.5 weeks, I guess, ago. And, you can see her little arms. Her arms and her hands were the worst part, and her little legs were all wrapped up in her face. And to just watch it, I had a front row seat. David and I and the kids, we had a front row seat of watching the miracle take place before our eyes. And there's so much behind the story, which is what I want to share with you today. I hope that's okay, just because I think God's testimony of what he does is probably the most powerful thing that we can release. And it was all him. And like I said, so I was the one that was with Kinley the entire time because only one of us could go with Kinley on the helicopter and on the ambulance to the helicopter and from the helicopter. And from the moment I was sitting inside the ambulance, the EMTs were calling and saying 100% second and third degree burns. We need to get her, life flighted as soon as possible. They didn't know what was going on with her lungs, of course, because they couldn't see. So in the call, immediately as I'm sitting in the ambulance, I'm hearing what they're saying, but I'm obviously saying, all right, Father, what are you saying? Because that's a lot to take in, to watch them basically sedate and put a breathing tube down your daughter's throat. You're thinking, and then second and third degree burns. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what's happening? What are we doing? And so, of course, I'm like, I did two things. I was listening to what they were saying, but I was listening to the Father. But I was also calling in the intercessors. And I just said, it's time for us to pray, because this is what the EMTs are saying right now, but I know our good Father has another plan. I'm going to be honest with you. In that moment, I didn't know what the moment was going to hold. I didn't know what the next day was going to hold. I didn't know what the weeks were going to hold. I didn't know what the months were going to hold, but I just knew that I know my calling, and that's to live by the life of another. And so I knew that didn't change no matter what was going on here. I had the opportunity to live by the life of Jesus in this very second. And I even thought in my mind, I thought, wow, here's an opportunity for you to really practice what you preach, Brooke. Because you're thinking, so many things run through your mind. So anyways, I'm with Kinley in the ambulance, and I'm with her on the helicopter, and the very first thing I remember Father saying to me personally, because as I was sitting in the ambulance, the first thing I thought was like, I should be ministering to these people at first, or normally I would be the one ministering to these people. I'm used to people dealing with hardships, coming to us and asking us to minister to them. And the first thing I heard the Father say to me, he said to me, Brooke, there's a time to minister and there's a time to be ministered to, which gave me an opportunity to just breathe and not think about what I had to say in the moment or anything like that, but just be. And because in that moment, I was mom who was there for her daughter at the most difficult time in her life, in the most life-threatening time of her life. And I felt like Father gave me the permission to just be. And so I kind of just broke down, and I just looked at her, and the lady next to me, and I'm like, I know you're going to tell me whatever you're supposed to say, but I want you to tell me the truth. Is she going to be okay? What do you think? And she's like, she's going to be okay. And I said, I think that's what Father's saying too. She's going to be okay. And so the very first thing was just permission for me to be, because I didn't know what else to do. And I honestly didn't feel like ministering to anybody. I just felt like praying to Jesus and saying, all right, tell me anything that's going to bring me comfort. And that did bring me comfort in that time. I think it's just exactly what I needed to hear. And then from then on, I just began to see God work. To me, it was like having ultra high definition. I've given a message on this, and so God reminded me, UHD, ultra high definition. It was like I got the most clear, ultra high definition, front row seat to what God was doing throughout this whole entire time. Doesn't mean that it wasn't hard. Doesn't mean it wasn't difficult. Doesn't mean I didn't have soul assaults. Doesn't mean I didn't have meltdowns and I didn't have those things happen. But can you put the other picture on? Because I just put of the first one I gave you of Kinley, probably a week, not even a week ago. She has a little hat on. Yeah. That was like a week and a half after that other photo. And so yeah. But when I was in the ambulance and in the helicopter, like I said, I just began to see God do things supernatural. And I think Pastor Carl shared a little bit of this, but it was like, it just felt like, to me, it felt like I was seeing what kingdom life looks like. Everybody in their positions or their assignments, everybody confident in the simplicity of, I just do what I hear Father doing, and I do it. And it just felt like I was seeing that happen right before my eyes. And I don't know if everybody was a believer, obviously, but I still believe God was working with them to, because I was there and he's in me, right? And I just begin to see people in their field, in the areas where they had, where they work, and like little things in the helicopter, one of the ladies' responsibilities was just to keep pumping meds into her, to keep her alive, to get us there to the hospital. And, she'd be like, and then there was a doctor, I think, on board, and he was the one that kind of called the shots. And he'd be like, we need to give her 500, or she would be like, I think we need to give 500 cc's of this. I don't know if this is correct, but so don't obviously quote me on this or anything like that. But he would be like, well, whatever you think. And she'd be like, you know what, I think I'm supposed to give her 250. Just little stuff like that. I know doesn't seem like the big thing, but it was just so cool, the confidence that they had. And I just felt like through it all, I could just see the Lord bring in words, revelation, or bringing words of knowledge, words of wisdom. These things were just coming to people as they were taking care of my daughter. And it was just beautiful, beautiful to see. And then we get to the hospital, and there's it felt like 50 people there, because not only were all the doctors and everybody who played a role, but they were training people. And so then they had trainers, people who were being trained, following them and watching them walk this out. And it made me think, in the church, we know that God has placed a calling on, or not a calling, but he's asked us to be mothers and fathers in the faith here, right? And it's kind of frowned upon in most churches, honestly, and in most younger generations, to walk alongside a mother and father in the faith. Somebody that says, hey, I wanna help you get unstuck. I wanna help you to see, maybe you're seeing this incorrectly. Maybe you're not seeing this right. And I just felt like, again, another part of kingdom life through this trainee and an actual person who's been doing it for a long time, showing them, hey, this is how it works. And I don't know what it was. It just was this out-of-body experience where, obviously out-of-body because I'm thinking, what's going on? What just happened, an hour ago, not even. And watching God miraculously move through all the people in different ways. And it just was incredible to see. And then I had been sending out prayer requests to Susie, just kind of letting her know, and then I started putting some stuff on Facebook because I was getting so many texts on my phone, like, is something wrong with Kinley? And I just felt like, okay, I can't respond to everybody, so maybe if I just do one large message out, and I'm not really on Facebook that much anymore, but I sent this message out, and I was sending out prayer requests to Susie, and I know you guys didn't get to see it, but I know she was trying to communicate as best as possible, but I was literally sending out prayer requests and then seeing it happen right before my eyes. I mean, and I'm sorry, but I got the best seat in the house because I got to see it all happening right then and there. But it was just the whole thing, and I know David can attest, and he probably already talked about it, but the whole thing was just so miraculous in so many ways. And like little things, like the doctor or Kinley was starting to have anxiety after like the second day of us being in the PICU, and they had already told us they were probably going to be moving us out, but she was like literally having a panic attack. She wanted out of the room. She wasn't really getting along with the nurse that was in there, which she was just a little bit more forward, and I think she was definitely trying to do her job, but Kinley just wasn't connecting with her, and she was starting to have an anxiety attack. And I just felt like, all right, Lord, I just pray right now that you would move us out of this room. And the second I said that gurney came out, and we were able to move Kinley out of that room. And all she needed was to just be able to be pulled in a wagon in the hallway for a little bit and not be stuck in the four walls. And that anxiety broke, and it was just, again, miraculous, incredible. Just, he's a good father, right? And I want to encourage you guys that us joining in together, joining in with what God was doing. I feel like, because I used to say, okay, what is the point of prayer? I remember, I think I've even asked Carl and Susie that, it's like, if God's, always speaking and always revealing to us, what is our responsibility when it comes to prayer? And I remember, I think Susie said, it's an opportunity for him to invite us in to what he's doing. And so our prayers, I just felt like God was already revealing to me what he was going to do. And he was saying, guess what, guys? You get to join in on an agreement with what I'm doing and see it unfold. And I just felt like I was seeing that over and over and over and over and over again. And it was just super powerful to me. And I hope it encourages you as well. I mean, just the outward expression. I mean, the other photo, you could see her, even her demeanor. She was sad, which understandably, she was confused. I just felt like, it almost felt like a broken spirit. And that's the hardest part as a mom. You're like, well, we'll get through the scarring if that's what it's going to be. And I didn't believe that, but I'm just saying, if that were, we'll get through this. But the broken spirit, just her heart broken, was one of the hardest things to watch her go through. And, but I'll tell you this. So the doctor said probably 2 weeks in PICU, 2 days. Then he said maybe 2 more weeks in the hospital, 1 day. And then we came home. And that's honestly where a lot of the healing began. And again, another testimony. I mean, obviously, doctors, nurses, they all played a huge part. That was, all the things that they put on her, all of that stuff, Father was working through all of that. But when we got home, the first 2 things that Kinley wanted was to see her dogs and to see her friends. And actually, Sam back there in the corner, that's grandma of the 2 little girls that were a huge part of her healing. And she wanted to be here today because I told her I was going to be talking about Kinley in her story. But these 2 little girls, I had to fair warn them. I'm like, listen, she's not going to look the same way she did when they saw her last. And I didn't know if that was going to be too much for them. And they were like, nope, they're coming over. She needs her friends right now. And they came over. I have a picture, I think, with the girls when we got home and with the dog. Yeah, don't judge the bedroom. We just moved, but we're Kinley and the girls playing one of the first days that she got back. And it was just, like I said, healing to her. It was just exactly what she needed in that time. And it was pretty cool to just see those girls be there for the friend who they just met, like, not even a month ago, but they've been they've been like impossible to separate, so it was awesome. And then I think I have one of the dog, Kinley's laying on the dog bed with Zane. And yep, I don't know, it's just incredible. Like I said, if you would have told me, 3 weeks ago that we'd be here today, and you would almost not be able to tell. You could almost not tell. And that's what we've been praying for, right? It's just, again, a testament of his goodness. And one of the things that I really felt like Father was kind of confirming in me through all this, and then it was funny that we were talking about Rhema word, the now word, the importance of the now word. A lot of people in the church, they believe all they have is the written word. And I thought about, man, in that situation, and I think about this, in that situation, if all I had was what I knew, I'd have been screwed. I feel like I would have been just, like I don't know what to do. If all I knew was that I had to search the scriptures for strength, for comfort, for joy, and for hope, and that was all that I had, and it wasn't in the person of Jesus Christ, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that's already residing in me, I don't know how I would have handled the situation. It would have been different, for sure. I'm not saying that there isn't hope, and there isn't strength, and there isn't joy in the scriptures. Obviously, there is, because the word is Jesus, but the Rhema word, the now word, what am I doing in this moment by moment, was the most important thing that I had at that moment. I was alone too. Remember, it was just me. Dave wasn't able to come with me, so I'm like, it's just me and you, Jesus. I wasn't alone. I should never say that. I never say that. I wasn't alone, but you know what I'm saying? David wasn't with me, and so I'm like, Lord, this is what I have. I have moment by moment with you. And thank God that he had already opened my eyes and revealed this revelation to me, because it was in that I had so much strength and so much comfort. And I just, like, little stuff, like, and David can attest to this, I'm not a nursey type of person. In fact, I get, like, a little woozy, and any sight of blood, and especially when your kids, I think all parents are probably like this, when your kids are hurt, like head, some people, I guess, they snap into nurse mode. I don't. I snap out into pass out mode, and I'm on the ground. So I'm like, oh dear Lord, how am I gonna do this? I have to be the one to do all the rubbies and all the stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. And it was so bizarre to just watch his strength just come through me for something like that even. And I'm like, okay, Lord, and when you experience stuff like this, and I know there's nothing he can't do, I preach it all the time, but sometimes you gotta, like some things like that, it's like you gotta experience it again and again to realize, no, there's nothing he can't do. And man, that seems like a small thing, but on day 3, she was still dealing with an intense amount of pain, you can imagine, because she still had all those burns. And on day 2, they told us we might go home, and I thought, I did have a little bit of a panic attack. I'm not gonna lie, I was okay. And David and Kinley were like, yeah, we're going home. And I'm thinking, but I'm the one that has to keep this all under control. And I have 3 other kids at home and 2 really large dogs. And I'm thinking, how in the world am I ready for this? That's what I thought. And I had to take a second because everybody was excited, but I wasn't. And I asked the Lord, I said, why am I not excited about that? And I really felt like he said, you need one more day. And that's what I pushed for. And I don't know if they were mad at me about that, but he was like, you can't be upset now. And I'm like, I'm not upset. I just don't feel like I personally, maybe it was just me, I'm not ready to go home right now because I don't know that I have everything that I need. And what happened in that last day gave me confidence, okay, we can do this, because the last day I pretty much had to be in charge of everything, because once you move out of the PICU, the nurses are so busy with their patients. So I was calling her every 30 minutes before she had to bring the medication, because I knew it was gonna take at least that. And I was just staying on top of everything. And as I was doing that, I was getting a handle on, okay, this is what the next few days are gonna be like, and I can do it. And so It may seem like not as miraculous, but it was, because it was like God spoke his rhema word. He said one more day, and that one more day brought me confidence, and that one more day brought Kinley and David confidence, and we were able to go home and literally, I think maybe a day, let's see what day we went home. Did we go home Tuesday? Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 3 days later, she never needed any more medication. She was, I don't want it. Okay. Let's see how this goes. And she just didn't like the taste of it because I was mixing it, and we were eating ice cream, chocolate ice cream. It's the only thing I could get her to eat. And I was like, so chocolate ice cream every 3 to 4 hours, awesome. But they were like, it's good because she needs lots of calories. And I'm like, okay, all right. So anyways, I think she just didn't like the taste of it, but then she had no pain. We prayed, okay, she doesn't want the medication. We were praying, no pain. And guess what? No pain. Saturday, within less than a week. And they thought we'd still be in the NICU. So, I mean, just incredible. But the Rhema word. And when Pastor Carl shared about that, I mean, that was the exact thing that Father was revealing to me. He's like, there is an importance, such an importance in the now word. And I can't believe that some of the church doesn't know that that's something that they get to experience and have. And my heart, man, it just began to kind of break in a way, because I'm thinking the church needs to know about the now word. And, I don't really understand what the pushback is, because, when you think about it, the written word was once Rhema word, right? I mean, it had to be released from the Lord's mouth himself to the people, and then they had to write it down. So the written word was once Rhema word. And so I don't know why, if the Rhema word was now for them, now in that very moment, this is what you need to hear. In this very moment, this is what you need to know. And even as we read in the scriptures and the gospels, same thing. God was releasing things that they needed to know now. And we're living in what? Now. So we need the now word just as much as we need the written word, as Pastor Carl, I think, shared on Wednesday. If you weren't here, you missed out. And I think it's online though, right? Yeah, so watch that. But I watched your sermon, let's see, was it the week before? Or no, Dave preached last week. I didn't get to watch that yet. But the week before that, you were talking about Rhema word then as well. And you were talking about, I think you were out at Matthew 4:4. Was it Matthew 4:4? Yeah, okay. So, the passage is, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every Rhema word that comes out of the mouth of God. And after he was sharing that, and I know we've talked about that before, that he was speaking of the Rhema word, not the Logos. But I just kept reading, so you're reading it, you're studying it. Lord, do you have anything else? And I just kept reading, and I just was like, Lord, is there something else? And he brought me to the centurion faith. You remember the faith of the centurion? And I begin to read it, and I want to just show you again, Father showing us the importance of a now word, okay? Or not even just now word, not just now word, but what is he saying, doing, and going? Not just what is he saying, but what did Jesus say he only did? I only say what the Father said, I only do what the Father does, and I only go where the Father tells me to go. Those are the only 3 things he ever did. And now he lives in us, and we get to continue that through our life. And so I was reading the centurion faith, because we've all said before, what does it look like to have great faith, right? And I'm in the midst of an opportunity for me to either say, do I have great faith or not? I remember David said that to me. He's like, I just don't know if I have great faith. And I'm like, and I started thinking about that myself. And then Pastor Carl gives that word. Father says, keep reading. And here I am at the faith of the centurion. And this is what he says. Now let's keep in mind here, okay? We always have to keep in mind that at this point, Jesus hadn't raised from the dead. And he isn't living inside of him. But in this passage, I believe the centurion is seeing kingdom life. And that's why Jesus says, wow, you have great faith. Let's read it, okay? Do you have it up there? Yep, no. Matthew 8, 5 through 10? Yes, awesome. All right. And when Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, begging him and saying, Lord, my servant is lying paralyzed at home, terribly tormented. Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. But the centurion replied, Lord, I am not worthy for you to come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority with soldiers who under me, and I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my slave, do this, and he does it. Now when Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those who were following, truly I say to you, I have not found such great faith with anyone in Israel. And here's a Gentile revealing kingdom life through this very word right here. I am also a man under authority. Jesus was under authority of who? Father. And when I am told, go, he goes. And here's the other thing I was seeing. Obviously, we know that Jesus tells the disciples, he gives authority to the disciples, and so he's also saying something that Jesus is about to do. He's about to give the disciples authority to go heal, to lay hands on the sick, to deliver the tormented, right? He gives authority. But like I said, we have to remember that Jesus still hadn't died yet and raised from the dead. But here's the two things I saw. Centurion was getting a now word. He was seeing what Jesus was doing right now. But he's also revealing a little bit of what kingdom life is going to look like through the disciples and through us. But it's going to be even better because it's not like God's up there and he's telling us, go here, and then we go over here. Okay. No, he's going to be inside of us, and we're going to go there together. And we're going to do it together, and we're going to say it together. And he's going to allow us to see where we're going, what we're saying, and what we're doing. Do you see the difference? But the centurion has great faith. Why? Because he's seeing right now what Jesus was doing. And we have an opportunity to join in on that. We right now, God could be releasing a right now rhema word for us. And he says, do you want to see what I'm doing right now? Do you want to go where I'm going right now? Do you want to do what I'm doing right now? And a lot of times, and I say this all the time, we're already doing it, but he wants us to see it and know it, right? He wants us to be aware of the fact that that is what we're doing. And I believe, whether some people might think it was not that big of a deal, whether some people might even not believe it was a miracle, I believe I got to experience that through Kinley's situation. Do, say, go. And not just me, but the people of God. Or maybe they aren't the people of God yet. I don't know. But I saw him doing kingdom life through the people who were helping my daughter get healed. And as Pastor Susie says all the time, there's no second-class healing. Oftentimes, we're always looking for the spontaneous healing. And I believe in that 100%. We've seen it before. We've experienced, some of you have experienced, we've heard testimony. We know God does it. It's in his word. He does spontaneous, but sometimes it's not spontaneous. But there's no second-class healing. And what we see here with Kinley, not that, but what we were seeing, what we saw with Kinley was not spontaneous, but it surely was a miracle. And so many ways. And when we open our eyes, let me just tell you this, because 3 years ago, all I was about was spontaneous healing, or like immediate healing, not spontaneous. I don't know why I kept saying spontaneous. Well, I guess that would be spontaneous. Immediate, like see it right now. I was all about that. And many of you might have been with us at that time, but it was all about the immediate healing. And God began to show me that he's much bigger than that. He's much more grand than that. He's greater than that. And he does it in different ways, in ways that we can't understand, in ways that we may not be able to comprehend at all. But he's still the miracle working God. And I'm not saying that there's not a gift of faith that wells up in us, and that might come out, and you might see those spontaneous things happen more often and more frequently. I experienced that for myself. I've experienced where God was releasing his supernatural life, and I think it was the gift of faith. I still ask the Lord, what was it? But I was seeing like healing after healing, words of knowledge, words of wisdom, and that kind of stuff, and it was often. But what I'm saying is that we just heard Jesus himself tell us what great faith was. And that's the ability to receive a rhema word, to do, say, and go as he leads. That's what great faith is. So we have great faith. we have great faith because he already told us that his sheep hear his voice. And if you're a believer in here, you're a sheep. Okay? You hear his voice. It's a promise. He says, my sheep hear my voice. So we hear his voice, and we get to do, say, go, as he leads us, as he does, I like to say. And so everybody say, I have great faith. I have great faith. Because guess what? God has led us into something, this very truth, this great faith thing. He's led us in on it. We know what great faith is. We may think that, I'm not doing a very good job at it sometimes, or whatever it is, because that's what the enemy wants you to believe. But what he's let us in on, most people do not know, guys. I mean, just the mere fact that we understand that it's do, say, go, and we get the ability, and we have the opportunity to do that is a game changer. Take it from me. I know it completely will wreck you. It will completely change you. And I don't know. I'm just amazed. But can I show you guys something else? This is. First of all, I want to just preface by saying, don't let this fear you. Okay? You're like, oh shoot. Don't be afraid of what I'm going to show you. But I just want to show you. I just felt like God said, I want you to show the people this, because there was a message I was going to give the following Sunday after Kinley was burnt on Saturday. So July 15th, Kinley was burnt. I was supposed to preach on July 16th. I have a picture of the message, and I just want you to see something. No, sorry, that was the message I was going to give. We're not going there now, but it's a picture from my phone. It says July, there it is. So it's a little small, so dang it, you're not going to be able to see how good it is. But I'm going to read it to you. Actually, I'll pull it up on here. And I still have it saved on here, the date. So maybe it's on my phone. Phone will be better. Okay, so I just want you to see that, you can't see it, but I wanted you to see that date says 7/15, the day that Kinley was burnt, and it's at 10:21. An hour before Kinley was burnt. I wrote this. I'm just going to read it to you if that's okay. It's not the whole thing. Don't worry. I'm not going to read the whole message. But Pastor Carl talked about, this is what I wrote down, at the day Kinley was burnt at 10:21. She was burnt around 11:30. Pastor Carl talked about it being time to ask Father to draw in those who are looking for what he's revealed to us. You had preached before I had given that message, okay. As well as praying for hunger to rise up in others for this. He spoke about us being a house of mothers and fathers, about how mothers and fathers come alongside young men and women, little children, and help raise them up to share of his faithfulness and what he's done in their life, and to help get them unstuck so that they can move forward. And I said, I know we've been praying, right? As people, we've been praying. You know, when I trust that when we are summoned to pray, this is a people who's praying. And so I said, we've been praying, and guess what? With that often comes resistance. And this was because I wrote this at that time because we were seeing the discouragement and anxiety and depression really bad from a few people in the house. And that's why I wrote that. I said, and we're sensing the attacks, right? As a church, we've been attacked lately in this area. And I said, I guess we shouldn't be surprised because Father's released to us his clear business, what he's doing through us as a church. He had already said to us, I'm bringing in 120. We were encouraged to pray for him to bring them to you and you to them. Pray that there would be greater hunger for this. He said it's time. And he said there's a significant thing happening here in Sarasota, and I believe Sarasota is being awakened, shaken for the things of God, because that's what we said, right? We prayed that he would shaken and awaken Sarasota and beyond for the things of God. And prayer works. We know he responds. And I put, we're not praying to a God who lets words fall on deaf ears. And I said, I believe many of us are feeling that shaking and that awakening right now. And I think that sometimes when God's shaking, sometimes it's like the enemy scatters and they get crazy. And sometimes we feel that outwardly, and we feel those attacks, and sometimes they're coming against us because we are obviously a part of God's plan. And when you wake up to such great revelation, you get better believe the enemy does not want it to leave this place. He doesn't want it to stay here, and he doesn't want it to stay in this size of a room. He wants it to stay in this size of a room. He doesn't want it to explode and have a ripple effect like it does, and it's going to, but he doesn't want it to. So he'll do whatever he can. I said in my own words, I said I felt it tremendously myself. And I was at that time I was feeling like, I don't know, it was like tension or something. And I think the leaders do tend to feel it a little heavier. And sometimes you just, like, I forget, Brooke, this isn't yours to carry, because this is an attack on Jesus Christ in you. So just I have to remind myself. But this is where I said, this is what I said next. I said, as the saying goes, though, if he can't get to you, he'll go after your kids. And I wrote that an hour before Kinley was burnt. And I said, if I'm honest, I've seen attacks in our life and my children's lives, but Kinley was burnt literally 1 hour after I wrote that. And I felt like, or this is what I said. I said, let's pray through this. I feel like I'm sharing this with you because I want to show you how God was kind of revealing things to me before. And although I wasn't fully seeing it, he was actually preparing me. The go before you, I'm going to read more and you're going to see. He was actually preparing me for what was happening in a way. And I said, let's pray through this. We don't fear it. Fear is usually combated by knowing that's the plan of the enemy and remembering whose the battle really is. And remember that the attacks are against Christ in us. I already said that to you guys. And I was also going to talk a little bit about how we have each other. We have our home gatherings. And oftentimes when when God's doing a bigger move, one of the most important things that you have is like your smaller group of people. And so those home gatherings are vital and super important. And God's given them to us. And I think that at that time, I really wanted to remind you, utilize the home gathering that God has placed in your life, okay? And then I said, I was feeling like Pastor David and I are supposed to open one up soon. And so we're praying about that. And I was talking about how I'm seeing people having an availability, opening up their homes, opening up time for home gatherings, because I just feel like we need that right now. And I just talked about how it's a very exciting time. And then I wrote this down. Father had given me an actual word for us. On the week that everybody was struggling with discouragement and anxiety, those weeks, he had actually given me a word while I was sitting right back there. And I just didn't feel like it was supposed to come up at that time, so I just wrote it down. And so this is what I wrote. Do not write off my ability. And I just feel like, again, he was already confirming in me what he was going to do. Do not write off my ability, my strength, my power, my timing. In your time, you will see me do what you thought was impossible. You will see me multiply what you thought couldn't be multiplied. And I think about that time. They said 2 weeks, and he turned it to 2. And that's like a different multiplication, but when you think about it, he was showing me that I'm going to reverse multiply. Where they say it's going to take this long, it's only going to take this long, those type of things. You will see me take what you thought was nothing and make it of something of great value. You will see me begin a new work through what seemed to be dried out, old, and worthless. You can trust me. The visions and prophetic words released from this house. So I was going to be talking about all the things that God had been releasing to us and to encourage us that those words weren't just spoken. They're real. They're things he's going to do. And the visions and prophetic words released from this house were not just words spoken. And this was the first one that I remembered. The little fires everywhere. I wrote it in here. Now listen, that has context. I don't know that he was showing me what was going to happen to Kinley, but the little fires everywhere comes from a vision he gave me a long time ago in regards to home gatherings. He showed me that there would be little fires all over our nation, or all over our city, of places where the people could come and feel like, have a personal place to connect, have a place where they can be like, man, this is something I want to be a part of, and come and join the corporate gathering. So the little fires everywhere. I just think it's not coincidence. You know, all these things that he released to me before. This was written literally an hour before, because I usually write down all my thoughts. I have all these thoughts, and Dave's like, why does it take you so long? I'm like, well, I'm just writing all these little things down that I hear God say. And then on either Saturday or Sunday, I just kind of try to write it all out. All right, how are we putting it? What's the order, you know? And sometimes he gives it to me, and sometimes he doesn't. And so sometimes I'm like, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. That's not true. Sometimes that's the best time. When I don't have it in order, sometimes I don't have anything to look at, sometimes I do the best because I'm just listening to his voice. But anyway, so he said, the little fires everywhere. This being a distribution center, this being a field of flowers. My mom had seen us, the foundation being a field of flowers, diversity, the 120. That's what she had this vision. And so he was saying, reminding me of that. He reminded me of the bright light that shined from here out, all the way out. I don't know if you guys remember me sharing that. This being a house of miracles, signs, and wonders. Hallelujah, we saw that. This being a place where the hungry can come and grow. And he said, these are all the things that I am doing. And we saw it, didn't we? We saw it, some of these things already. And I believe that vision where I had the light coming from up here, you guys have no idea how many people's lives Kinley's story touched. I found out, and we found out from so many people going to different prayer events and being like, and they would bring up Kinley's name and they'd be like, oh my gosh, we've already been praying for her. And they have no connection whatsoever. I had a friend from Ohio say she went to a random prayer meeting, and when she got there, she hadn't seen my post yet, but when they got there, they were praying for a little girl named Kinley who had been burnt really bad, who was 7 years old. And when she got home, I had just posted it after they had already been praying, and she was like, I could not believe that it was your Kinley. I mean, and people were messaging me from across the world saying, we're praying for Kinley. And people were just amazed by what God had done through this little girl. And yeah, it's just incredible. And so you have no idea. That light that he was showing me, it's already bursting forth. And maybe it's through Kinley, and that's a big part of it. I don't know. But I mean, it's just incredible to just watch God do what he does, right? And be who he is. And so he says, these are all things that I'm doing. You can trust me. Right now I am shaking and awakening this city and beyond. Not only will others feel it, but so will you. Be alert, stay expectant. It's time for the people to see what I've been doing here. And that was just the very first portion of the message. I was going to talk about how difficult it is for many of us to say, if you've seen me, you've seen Jesus, because David had talked about that before, and I had 2 people come up to me. I don't know that I could say, if you've seen me, you've seen Jesus. And I just began to write down what Father said about that, because I know that was hard for me at first to even say and to believe. I remember Carl and Susie would be like, look in the mirror and say, good morning, Jesus. And I'm like, I can't do that. All I see is at that point I was like smothered in pimples and like probably this big because I was pregnant or something. And I'm like, I'm just kidding. It's not about that. But now I'm not kidding. I literally can't tell you enough. It's a reversal, really, almost of the mind. You wake up and you say, I'm waking up because I have Jesus in me, and I have the ability to hear his voice, and I can do, say, and go. So no matter what's thrown at me, no matter what comes my way, I'm going to still be able to live by the life of Christ. No matter what I've done and who I've done it with, whatever, I can still live by his life. And I stand here just incredibly excited, joyful. I know we haven't started school yet, so Kinley is probably like thinking she's not gonna have to go to school. So we still have that hurdle to face, but we're gonna be talking about that, so if you could be praying. It's been working, so if you could be praying, boldness to go to church, or to school. She came to church, we prayed boldness to come to church. She's here. I hope you got to see her. If not, maybe she'll let you look at her for 2 seconds before she runs to the next direction. But I just stand up here just to testify of God's goodness. And he's so good. He's so good. And I hope it encouraged you. And you know what I want to remind you is, Kinley's situation, felt to me like a life or death situation for a minute there because I didn't know. And I knew that what my role, my assignment was in that time. We talk about how our calling never changes, but our assignment changes. And I knew what my assignment was in that time. And I think for all of us, we forget or we downplay the reality that at any moment, God could say, open your eyes, lead you somewhere in a life or death situation, and he might use you to save another's life. And, being open to the assignment, whatever the assignment might be, and knowing that it could change or whatever it is, and saying, yes, Lord. I mean, how many of you, we're praying for that all the time. We want to see that in our lives, right? And I just want to encourage you that it may not look the way that you think it will be. It looks. So don't put any boundaries around it. Just say, yes, Lord, I want to do it. I mean, everybody that was there on that day with Kinley, we're all on assignment, I believe. And I believe many of them probably don't feel like they had much of a role. Like, I was just sitting in the back or whatever. But I saw it. I just felt like the Lord gave me the opportunity to see that every single person had a huge part in it, whether it was just to comfort me. There was one guy who, when I got off the ambulance, I had to wait to get on the helicopter, and the lady comes up to me, and she goes, Mom, are you going to be able to do this? And I was like, yes, yes. And she was like, she told me later, she came in, she was like, I was really impressed by you, that you were able to do that. I'm like, it was the Lord. I'm thinking it was the Lord, because I knew my assignment. But what was I saying? Oh, she comes, in the ambulance. Yeah, so I get off the ambulance, and there's just this one sweet guy, and he's like, you can tell he's not a touchy-feely guy, but he was like, Mama, he's like, are you okay? And it was like really awkward. I'm like, wow, you don't hug very often, do you? But I'm telling you, it brought me so much comfort in that moment, and he didn't do anything else but do that. And I really did need that. I was just standing there staring at the helicopter. I'm like, what is happening, And he just came and said, Mama, it's going to be okay. And, I just am reminded, you never know. Like, I know Susie's so good at this. She just encourages me so much. Like, she could be at the grocery store, and she could just say one little thing, like, your shoelace looks nice. And then their life's changed. I'm like, how does that happen? Just kidding. It's true, isn't it? Okay. Anyways, you never know. And just be encouraged that he's always speaking. He's always working. We say this all the time, but I hope this encourages you further. All right. I love you guys. You have something to close out with? If you guys have anything? No. Amen. Yeah.